They all want to try some grapes. And then if I don't pay attention, George is in the basket eating grapes throughout the entire shopping. So it's a bad example that one sets.
It gets to the cash register, just hands them.
They all want to try some grapes.
The kids ate them all.
All right. Would you respond to Brian's survey here, please? Let him know that we are on YouTube now.
Brian Senior,
Yes, sir. And then,
I sent him a text.
and brother, Todd,
Who?
Todd.
Oh, okay,
You need to call him though. Don't send him a text. He can't read it.
yeah.
Okay, I apologize for this interruption here. We got a classroom full of grape eaters.
Is it the up arrow to send it?
Yes, sir. Okay, well, some do, not everybody then. You just look at them. All right, here we go now.
Hey Todd, this is Tony. We should be up and going now. You should be able to get on there. All right. Just want to let you know. Yep, bye-bye.
Thank you. Okay, eating grapes, not only eating grapes, but if you eat it, Walmart has this guarantee that if you don't like what you buy, you can always bring it back. So why wait till you bring it home to try it out, see if you like it? Why not try it there? And if you don't like it, just leave it there. We can rationalize these things. Or if you work for a company that you feel you're not appreciated, take advantage of that company. Or say that, again, GM is a multi-billion-dollar company, doesn't pay me enough. So they can afford for me to take a roll of toilet paper home. Again, what I'm trying to get us to see is that we can rationalize any sin that we want, whether it be adultery or stealing. Now, this stealing has become an epidemic in any and every society. But if you think about our country, don't our politicians participate in stealing?
Grand leaders.
Yeah. I mean, if our leadership does that,
Then it must be okay.
well, if mom and dad steal, lie and cheat on their taxes, what is that teaching the children? So that's just in the household. But now if our leaders in our government do that, why, what should people expect from their citizens? So again, as you see on the screen here, government leaders misusing funds, employees stealing from employers, employers exploiting unfair prices and wages. Athletes. I mean, don't you think it's so ridiculous that we pay athletes $200-300 million to throw a ball? Celebrities that much money to sing a song with auto-tune and then get up on TV and tell us how we should vote. It makes no sense to me. But it's those type of attitudes that we use to rationalize. Okay, we can steal from them. We can from these musicians, we can pirate their music because they're not gonna miss it. They deserve to be hurt that way. No. Or our neighbors, they've encroached on our property line. So what if I do take his plow or siphon some gas from him? I'm saying these things like I've done them, haven't I?
You're pretty specific.
Well,
Yeah.
you've admitted to some of
I'll ask for forgiveness in a minute. I got a couple of the elders here, but I've been talking to some people, or those that hoard the resources. Is that a type of stealing?
Fraud, any type of fraud.
Any type
You're
of
not,
fraud?
it's not, a lot of times we categorize stealing as to, we're physically taking something, but fraud is one of the biggest stealing things in the world.
Yeah, so scammers. What I have up there is deceitful acquaintances excuse me, individuals living lavishly while others suffers. And I wrote that thinking of the rich man and Lazarus. He lived a lavish lifestyle every day, and he stepped over Lazarus. And was that not one of the things that Abraham reminded him of his sins? So is that a form of stealing, of thievery? Because is it the second greatest command, love your neighbor as yourself?
I don't know if I call it.
Stealing, you wouldn't? Okay. Maybe not.
What I was referring to mostly with fraud is you can fraud the government. That's stealing. Employers can fraud their people. That's stealing. Leviticus talks about frauding somebody that's hired.
Yeah.
Your hired servant. That's stealing.
Your slave.
It's not, not giving them what they're due.
Yeah.
That's stealing.
I think it's James that talks about not paying your slave or taking advantage of your slaves. Yeah. So the next few questions ask these things. Who should follow this commandment of not stealing, and for how long? Is it just for the Israelites that were at the hearing of Moses when he read the law? Is it just for the old covenant? Something that we talked about already at the beginning. And what actions must be taken according to this commandment? And that one question there is not as clear on purpose, because I think we need to kind of think about that question. So what actions must be taken according to this commandment? What actions to keep from stealing? What actions to remedy when we do steal? What kind of punishment for the one that steals? You know, in some Middle Eastern countries, those that steal, their hand is cut off. In the Old Testament, eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth.
Will a man rob God?
Will a man rob God? And so we can also steal from God, right? Because God deserves the first fruits. And that is going to come out from 1 Corinthians chapter 16 when we get there. So Exodus 20 verse 15 says, you shall not steal. What does that mean? Well, it means what it says. So in my prayer, I mentioned for God to help us see beyond these words. And that's what we actually been talking about. Stealing means more than just what these words say. Defrauding one another, defrauding God, defrauding our neighbors. It involves a lot of things other than just taking somebody's stuff. Yes, sir.
When I was making a living as a carpenter, I would buy carpenter's overalls. And then back then, I would do my own income taxes. So I'd write that off but Barbara said to me one day, and this is true. Did your employer expect you to get this? If you just buy it on your own, that's not a write-off.
Mm.
But if it's required of you, so I had to take that write-off.
That's again walking within the shadows, right? Because you probably could, and you could probably explain it away, but it's dubious. In Ephesians chapter 4, verse 28, we have the answer to the question, who is this commandment for, and for how long, of not stealing? Well, that commandment was for the Israelites for that time. Then we come to the New Testament, and we're told here, he who steals must steal no longer. So how do we fix it? If you're stealing because you're hungry, you're stealing because you need clothing, you're stealing because you need a house, room, board, and shelter, well, then work. That's what he says.
Good job.
Performing with his own hands what is good, so that he will have something to share with one who has need. Notice the three commands in this verse, at least three. If you steal, stop it. That's one. Get a job. Two. And then help those who have a need. Three. So he's telling us here, one, get a job. Two, help yourself. And three, don't be a hoarder. Which is why, Brother Mike, I said that if you live a lavish lifestyle and don't help the poor, is a form of stealing. Because of this verse.
But then you could say, well, every street person or person living on the street, I gotta give my money.
No.
Pretty soon you'd be broke.
Yeah.
And they'd have it.
Yeah, but keep it in mind as you have opportunity, especially the household of need, the household of God. Yeah, I think like the widow that gave her mite, she gave all she had, but does God expects us to give all that we have? Which is no. But I'm talking about, you know, as the rich man that purposely, a lavish lifestyle would be an exaggerated lifestyle. While the guy is at your doorstep and you see him every day and you just walk past or right over him. But that's what I was referring to here. But I really like the way Paul illustrates it here. Get a job, quit being a bum, help yourself, and help others. Yes, sir. Oh, no.
Well, as Christians, and we're talking about Christians, how we should deal with the thou shalt not steal, but we're told as Christians to be virtue and add virtue to our faith. Virtue is moral excellence. Virtue is doing the right thing all the time. And so we know ourselves if we're doing something that's not right, or stealing or frauding somebody. So like you said, it's not a question. We each one know it. And I spent my whole career in purchasing and procurement, and you can buy things and hurt somebody
Yeah.
because they're in need. And you have to know, and I made a point always, and Tony Turner has always been this way. You don't want to buy, and I like to buy something as cheap as I can, but not to hurt somebody, not to hurt the person that's selling it. And so if they're in dire need because of something, lost their job or whatever, and they need the money, you don't go try to take it away from them at what it's not valued at. Always, you know what the value it is. So that's kind of what I'm talking
Don't take
about.
advantage of them.
Don't take advantage of. That's defrauding them.
So if the person needs the sale to survive, and you undercut him on purpose because you know that he's over a barrel,
Yeah.
that's defrauding.
I bought a load of logs one time.
They can't hear you.
I bought a load of logs, the semi brought the logs, then I would cut them up for firewood. But when he brought the logs, I knew the price he wanted. But when he brought them, I tried to Jew him down.
Ooh,
And my brother was
That'll
there.
work.
My brother was there, and it just frustrated him to no end. And so, you know, here's a man trying to make a living, and it's hard enough as it is. And here I am trying to Jew him down.
Did you?
Huh?
Did he come down?
No,
Well, one of the things that I appreciate about the Amish is that they want to deal fairly, and when you try to take advantage of them, they won't deal with you at all. Why'd you look at Rachel? She knows what I'm saying. What I'm saying is the truth. So how do we break this command? Well, I think it's quite easy, but let's put it in categories. First of all, what's not yours, don't take it. I mean, that's quite simple. Stealing, fraud, cheating, borrowing without paying back, extortion, threaten for money, holding somebody over a barrel. But gambling, let's look at gambling, which some people have a hard time seeing this one, because they'll say, well, playing the stock market is gambling, which is true. It's a gamble when you play the stock market, but it's also a gamble when you change careers, or when you depend on Social Security, because ever since I've been alive, in every election cycle, what's one of the topics that the politicians say? Well, and by this year, Social Security is gonna be gone. What are you gonna live off of? Or 401k, where a few years ago, stock market crashed and people's pensions were hurt, was hurt. So all of that's gamble. Leaving your house is a gamble. Getting the car is a gamble. Life is a gamble. So again, if we want to rationalize an activity that we like, we will come up with a way to do it. But here's the way I've understood gambling: the pursuit of obtaining something without putting in work or genuine effort. However, there are professional gamblers that would say it's hard work at doing the research to figure out the odds and the statistics and being up all night long and calling the bookies, and so there's genuine effort there. Well, yeah, but what's driving that? Greed. And at whose peril? Somebody else's loss. That's what gambling is always going to be. As somebody else's loss, sadness, heartache, heartbreak. That's what is feeding all of this. And there's always this saying at the casino homes or places, the house always wins. Yes, this person here might hit it and win, but for every one that wins,
10 lose.
whatever, hundreds or thousands are going to leave bankrupt or broke.
Trying to get something for nothing.
Well,
Is
that's what you're trying to do with the log guy.
yeah, that was years ago.
Yeah, well,
I
but see, but
I
that,
repented.
and of course, but see, that's, I use that example to say that we all want the best deal, but sometimes we want a better deal than the best deal. Right? Of the grapes that I buy from Pick and Save, I want all the grapes to be sweet and plump and juicy. And I want to try them all before I buy them. Yeah. I remember when, well, there's something else. And it's like when you buy cigarettes, there's a label on there that says, it used to say it may cause cancer.
Surgeon General says.
Have you ever met our Surgeon General?
Now it says it's been determined, I
No.
think, right?
Our Surgeon General's a freak. Yeah. The one that's in there right now. It was a man that became a woman.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Huh.
That's the least of her worries. But it used to say it may cause cancer, it's been determined to cause cancer. Why doesn't it say it does cause cancer?
Yeah.
Because the tobacco companies still make money. But these gambling houses, just like the alcohol places, the can of beer has a phone number. If you feel like you have a problem, call this number. If you feel that you have a gambling problem, call this number. The industry realizes, because they're forced, I guess, by the government, in small letters, by the way, that you have to have some reading glasses to see it. But this could cause you some problems.
Why they create agencies.
But we know that if we get rid of these vices, we'll lose money. But here's a phone number that you could go to get some help, which will also cost you money to get some help. So it's poor stewardship of one's own possessions. Risking to gain instead of working to gain. When I lived in Puerto Rico, every restaurant, like a Longhorn Steakhouse, any good sit down restaurant is in a hotel, and all these hotels are owned by casinos. And to get to any hotel room, it's going to be second, third, fourth, whatever floor. To get to any restaurant, you have to go through the casinos. All the flashing lights, all the woohoo, when you hear the ka-ching, ka-ching, where the people are winning or not, the machines are making that noise. Why do they do that? It's a hook. It's a hook. Well, as you're walking through there, well, you pass the nickel and dime machine, the quarter machine. What's that? It's not gonna hurt. I just put a quarter in there. And it just so happens that the machines that you pass by that is a quarter, it's the ones that they're rigged for you to win on that one quarter. $5 to $10. Man, I won on the quarter. What does that mean? That if I go in the deeper machines, because those are only quarter machines, if I go into the deeper machines where it's a $5, $10, $20 machines, if I won $10 on this one with the quarter, what if I put $20 in this one? You leave there without eating a steak. Poor stewardship. So for the industry to put at the casinos or on lotto tickets or whatever, here's a phone number if you have a problem, it's because even they recognize it's exercising low moral standards.
Mhm.
Marketing.
Of course, yeah. So how does the gambling industry and the states like Wisconsin, how do they wrap this in a beautiful bow to try to sell it to us so that we can vote for it and say it's legal?
Generates income.
What does it do?
It generates income for the
And lowers taxes?
lowers taxes.
My property taxes are high, so that didn't work. But a portion of this goes to school. So I've even heard people say, here at Quick Trip, as they're buying the tickets when when it goes up into millions, well, I'm helping out the school system. Yeah.
goes
in their pockets.
It used to be you'd get I don't know if you still do, but you used to get a lottery credit on your taxes. And I think you still have a thing on their lottery credit,
Really,
For-
really teeny small.
so
If you look at the percentage they
giving-
promised us.
they're
and see
giving
what it
credits
is.
to people that that don't gamble. But they're taking all this money from all these people, and so,
They ought to give that credit to the people that do gamble.
yeah.
So I can put it back into the system. That's the way that they make sure that they get it back, the gambling industry. The next thing I have up here is failing to give full value or false balances. That's where if you're a business owner, when I was, well, you all here are old enough to remember when you would go to the general store and buy, let's say, flour, and they would weigh it out, sugar, salt, beans, weigh it out on the scale. I seen this I still see this when I go to third world countries, because this is the way people still buy stuff. And it's always amazed me that you go there and you say, I want a kilo of flour or a kilo of sugar. That some of these dishonest shop owners, when they put it on the scale, they do it like this, just throw it on there, then take it off.
Yeah.
Because when I throw it on there, the scale goes up like this quickly. All right, there's a kilo. Instead of putting it on there, they balance out. And then in these great markets, there are inspectors that are walking up and down with their own scales to test the scales that the sellers have. And not only they're walking with their own scales, but they're walking like with the wheelbarrow, where they're confiscating the dishonest scales. So when you look at Micah, what verse do I have there? Micah chapter 6 and verse 11. Do I have the verse up there? Someone read
Yeah,
Micah
11.
6:11.
Shall I count them pure with the wicked balances and with the bag of deceitful weights?
Yeah, a bag of deceitful weights. So those balances, they're used very common in the meat markets. One side is where you put your product, and the other side is where you put the weight. So you say, I want a pound of meat, then you'd put the weight pound on this side and it would balance this way. Well, there were wicked or false weights, and that's what Micah's saying, the bag of false weights. Well, the Jews were condemned for doing that. They was told you can't do that because you're frauding, you're stealing from your brother. You shouldn't do that to anybody. Well, that's a form of stealing, and as I have here listed, that companies that overcharge for their product. You know, during hurricane season and they jack up the prices of the hotel rooms, motel rooms,
Building material,
building material, gas prices,
food,
that's stealing. Employers who don't provide for their employees when they could. Health insurance, benefits, when they could and they should, but they refuse to do so. That's stealing. Lazy employees that won't work a full day's, honest day's work, and they're just milking the clock. Or false advertising. You know, like the snake oil people that would go into the town and say, this right here is the miracle balm salve. It heals a stink eye, and it also takes the warts off your toes. Yeah. Yes, sir. Who had their hand up?
the CEO that was, the insurance CEO that was murdered.
Mhm.
There's an accusation that he was using artificial intelligence
Oh, for the United Healthcare
Mhm.
CEO?
he was using artificial intelligence to cancel people's policies. I don't know what all's involved in that, but
Yeah, who knows? Denying someone their rights and justice is also stealing.
it sounds, insurance companies could do that.
Well, how about a judge? Oh, here, somebody sent me a text that when Taylor Swift was in Indiana, hotels were charging $800 a night for a hotel room. Yeah, I know that's supply and demand in the free market, but still, that's not
That
right.
happens all over the United States when there's some big event going on. They triple the price of their rooms for that weekend, and then they go back down.
But it's not right, is it?
No,
Well, in
no,
the winter,
it's not right, but
It's a free market, I know.
they put the price on and you take it if you want it, or you
Yeah,
know,
there
and
you
that's the
go.
same, that's the same way that these casinos, nobody's forcing them to come in. But it's not morally right.
It's not morally right.
That's where the Christian has to distinguish between what is accepted as right and what is right.
Yeah, because hurricane hits a city and all these gas stations jack up their price, but one doesn't. Where are you gonna go from now on?
One that didn't.
Yeah, even though they're always high or higher than the other places, but you're gonna go to that one because you know that they have ethics. Right? Um. Can a judge, can the legal system deny somebody their rights? Yeah, that's stealing. That's when the government steals rights from a person. So now you see that when it says thou shalt not steal, there's a lot more to this. Everything in the Ten Commandments, there's a lot more than just the words. Just there's. So it was a tablet of stone on the front and back, but there was a lot more to it. So don't commit adultery meant don't look at your neighbor's wife, don't think about her, don't lust after her, and then don't go get her. A lot to it. Don't go to her house by yourself when her husband's not there. You have no business going, you know, all those things.
If we took Exodus 20 in the scriptures, the verses that show the 10 Commandments and just used those, we'd be doing a disjustice because it's not spelled out. It's just but when you read the rest of the book of Exodus and all the laws for everything, if you steal a man's animal or this or that, or
The application.
they're all of that gets into very fine detail of what's wrong and right with something and how to fix it.
Well, and then what Brother Tony mentioned here earlier on, failing to give to the Lord in 1 Corinthians chapter 16. And let's read verses 1, 2, and 3. Now concerning the collection of the saints, as I directed to the churches of Galatia, so you do also. Now we need to make sure that we understand why Paul wrote this. The only example we have of a collection being taken up in the church is on the first day of the week. This is it. Right? So this is why we do it on the first day of the week. Now, Paul is saying to them, I want you to do it so that when I do go, you won't have to be scrambling and do a special collection, have it ready. But now notice what he says, that on the first day of every week, each one of you is to put aside and save. How much? Well, how much was it in the Old Testament?
10%.
Why do you think God told them 10%? Think about it. Are we a people that have to have rules? I mean, why do you have to, if you are a manager, supervisor for a business or a company, why do you have to give your employees a job description of what you expect of them? Why not just tell them, use common sense of what you need to do? Because we are people that need to be told what, when, and how much, so that we can at least know where the bar is. And if I at least do what is expected of me, the very least, then nobody can gripe at me. 10% was the least. And if the people did the least, then God's satisfied. But we come to the law of liberty, and some people would say, well, the Old Testament was so difficult to keep. Well, maybe in some cases, but at least they knew exactly what they had to do, the minimum. When we come to the New Testament, as far as giving is concerned, God says, I'm leaving it up to you, for you to decide, based on how much I bless you.
Mhm.
And understand that 10% was the minimum. Now you decide. And when it's left up to us to decide, most of us don't even reach 10%. You see that? It's like giving us rope for us to hang ourselves. So anyway, let's read this. On the first day of every week, each one of you is to put aside and save as he may prosper, so that no collections be made when I come. When I arrive, whomever you may approve, I will send them. What am I reading here? Yeah. I will send them with letters to carry to your gift to Jerusalem. So when it comes to giving of our means, we do need to understand that it was here for a purpose, for a need. It was to help those saints that had a need. There will always be a need as long as there's people on this earth. Jesus says the poor will always be among you, so there's always a need. But again, I pointed out the minimum, the 10%. Now, as we have prospered, so God commands us in His Word to provide a generous portion of what we have been prospered to the Lord. When we fail to do so, we fail to recognize who is the one that provides us with the blessing. We fail to recognize that it comes from His hand, and that when God blesses us, He fills our bucket. And once it's full, He shakes it, presses it down, and fills it up some more. So when we do that, we rob God. And that's the passage that you quoted from Malachi. Will a man rob God?
And he went on to say, test me in this, and I will fill your barns overfilled. You know, paraphrasing, but I mean, we can, it's not testing God, but we're proving. You do what He says and He will bless you, like He says.
When I was in Chile this last time, there's a group of Venezuelans that they fled their country because of communism, and they were talking about when this lady that became mayor of that city that they're from the Communist Party, that in order for her to be elected, to gain the approval of her people, that she starved them for about 3 months. No food came into the town, into the city. And during those 3 months, she blamed the Democratic Party, the party of democracy. And she said, there's no food coming into the country because of all the sanctions from the US and from, you know, all the other countries. There's no food. And that's how she got elected. But there was a small group of people in the city that didn't believe what she was saying. But anyway, after she was elected, a little bit of food started coming in, just a little bit. And some of these people went and found some warehouses that had been locked up. And these warehouses were full from the bottom to the top of grain, corn and wheat that had molded and mildewed and just been destroyed. Where the Communist Party had just let all that go to spoil and not given it to the people so that they could win the votes and say that, I mean, they were keeping it from the people on purpose. But what I was getting at is that that's how God blesses these storehouses full. And that's what they were saying, that they were just full. When they opened the door, it's just kind of, the doors kind of just broke open of how much food was it. Well, God blesses us to that point. And sometimes we just hoard it. Don't even want to share it. Forget sharing it with other people. Don't even want to give back to God's purpose. So let's look at the commandment, thou shalt not steal. It's a very negative command. Don't do it. But is there any positive to that command? Now, I have on the screen, thou shalt not, and then there's a good part to it. What's a good part to it? Don't steal. Well, if God tells us don't do something, there has to be a positive reason for it. When you tell your child don't do something, there has to be a good reason why, unless you're just a dictator.
Well, don't steal so that it can be used for something positive rather than just for that person that's stealing and thinking of himself or maybe somebody else, but I don't know, it's.
Well, if nobody's stealing, then nobody's gonna steal anything from me.
What does God want us to do with the blessings he's given us?
Sure.
Give it to others.
One is share. What'd you say?
Yeah, to give like that, where he said steal no more, he didn't say steal no more, that you can take care of yourself. He said, steal no more, get a job. Not take care of yourself, but to give, he jumps all the way to give to others. He
Okay.
he almost skips the take care of yourself, just showing what your attitude should be.
Anyone out in Zoom land want to contribute to this? So the positive, the negative is don't do it, don't steal. What would be the reason or the positive of not stealing? The opposite of not stealing. You say giving, which I think you're right. Anything else?
Well,
Help one another.
Help one another. Okay.
receiving, God blesses his people. I mean, when we 1 Corinthians 16 and 2 Corinthians 9, we see that God is able to make all grace abound to those, that they would have sufficiency to help those that are in need. That the words God is able is so powerful.
Okay.
Yeah, and so you touched on it. Don't steal because God will take care of you. God will bless you.
All right. So a good steward. Oh man. Did you read my notes? Somebody just sent me, I'm sorry, I had to stand, my back was hurting. Somebody just sent me a text message here saying, please God, and that is true, please God. And I keep digging because I want a specific answer. You just gave it. Let's look at Matthew chapter 25 and verses 14 through 30.
Matthew,
25, 14 through 30. And good stewardship is what I think we need to maybe focus on for a little bit. Mike, would you read those verses 14 through 30? Corporate, yeah, well, got a big mouth, right?
Or he's just like a man about to go on a journey, who called his own slaves and entrusted his possessions to them. To one he gave 5 talents, to another 2, to another 1, each according to his own ability, and he went on his journey. Immediately, the one who had received the 5 talents went and traded with them and gained 5 more talents. In the same manner, the one who had received the 2 talents gained 2 more. But he who received the 1 talent went away, dug a hole in the ground, and hid his master's money. Now, after a long time, the master of those slaves came and settled accounts with them. The one who had received the 5 talents came up and brought 5 more talents, saying, Master, you entrusted 5 talents to me. See, I've gained 5 more talents. His master said to him, Well done, good and faithful slave. You were faithful with a few things. I will put you in charge of many things. Enter into the joy of your master. Also, the one who had received the 2 talents came up and said, Master, you entrusted 2 talents to me. See, I have gained 2 more talents. His master said to him, Well done, good and faithful slave. You were faithful with a few things. I will put you in charge of many things. Enter into the joy of your master. And the one also who had received the 1 talent came up and said, Master, I knew you to be a hard man, reaping where you did not sow, gathering where you scattered no seed. And I was afraid, went away and hid your talent in the ground. See, you have what is yours. But the master answered and said to him, You wicked, lazy slave, you knew that I reap where I did not sow and gather where I scattered no seed. Then you ought to have put my money in the bank, and on my arrival I would have received my money back with interest. Therefore take away the talent from him, and give it to the one who has the 10 talents. For to everyone who has, more shall be given, and he shall have an abundance. But from the one who does not have, even what he does have shall be taken away. Throw out the worthless slave into the other. Throw out the worthless slave into the outer darkness. In that place there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth.
Wow. So at least 4 things that should stand out there in this parable of the talents. What are talents here?
Gifts.
But specifically, is it not money?
Okay.
Money, right? But you're right, they're gifts. So talents, everything that we have, everything that we have, God has provided us with, whether it be money, home, automobile, all those things are talents. And God expects us to use those talents just for ourselves, or for what? So in this parable, one of them received, the first one received how many talents?
Okay.
Second one?
Oh, I'm sorry.
5, 2, and 1.
5, 2, and 1, yeah.
All right, 5, 2, and 1. And the master goes off. And while he's gone, each one of them, with the exception of the last one, takes those talents and uses them to make more talents for their master. Right? However, the last one does not do anything with that other than bury it, bury it. And that's it. And his reasoning, the last one, reasons this way. I know that you are just, you're very strict. You're an exacting master. And I was afraid that either I would lose it, invest it incorrectly, point being, I would lose it. So I hid it. So what did the master say? If you already knew that I was this way, the very least that you could have done with this talent was what?
The bank, make some interest.
And you know how much interest the bank pays. So God, with these 3 people, gave each one according to their ability. So he doesn't expect the third one to produce as much as the first one. But he does expect each one to produce something according to their ability. So the first one that he gave those talents was, how many was it, were there? 5. He knew that he could do what he did. So he rewarded him. So the positive of the commandment, do not steal, is that what he has given you, do the best that you can with that for the glory of the kingdom of God. Whether it be stewardship in being a good neighbor, in giving back to the Lord, in helping the kingdom grow. But whatever it is, and whatever your ability is, whatever your talent is, whatever your field of expertise might be, use it for that. Now, you might be the widow in the widow's mite. You might be the one that that God has blessed you with your own business where you can employ people. Or you might be the one that can crochet some mittens and hats. You see? That's the point. But never be the one that says, I'm afraid I might mess up. Therefore, I won't do a thing. Because fear is what's going to cause us to be, verse 30, throw out the worthless slave into the outer darkness. In that place, there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth, where there will be the people that say, I just knew how strict, how stern, and how exacting. Now, the word exacting means how demanding God is. Well, God is as demanding as we are able to produce. Does not expect more than we can do. I think there's another verse that says that, right? He will not give us more than we're able to handle. Because with every test, there's a way out, the window of escape.
Mhm.
And who is our window of escape? That's Jesus. That's Jesus. Right, so let's look at another section. It's on the screen. Proper priorities. Matthew 6:24. Do you have that? Matthew 6:24.
No man can serve two masters. Excuse me, for either he will hate the one and love the other, or he will hold to the one and despise the other. You cannot serve God and mammon.
31 and 32, 33, please.
Therefore take no thought, saying, what shall we eat? Or what shall we drink? Wherewith shall we be clothed? For after all these things do the Gentiles seek. For your heavenly Father knows that you have need of these things. But seek first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all these things shall be added unto you.
So giving to God might not be the biggest portion, but it does need to be the first priority. Why, or do you agree with that, with what I just said, that giving to God financially might not be the biggest portion, but it does need to be the first priority. I mean, that's what the passage says, right? Let God be first, seek first the kingdom of God and everything else will be added unto you.
Mhm.
Because we do have other responsibilities. And that's on the screen, the family. Because if we don't take care of our family, then what happens? What does God say about that?
Worse than an infidel.
Well, worse than an unbeliever, an infidel. Some translation says a Gentile, which is, kind of racist, but that's what he's talking about. Worse than somebody that doesn't have his priorities straight. So God comes first. And then that's the next thing that we have there, the family. And we're going to jump that and go to the next section only because of time. Let's look at the commitment section here. This is the 8th of the 10th commandments that we've looked at. In Matthew 22 and verse 21, they asked Jesus, trying to trap him, should we pay taxes? Should we render to Caesar? And this is quite interesting. Jesus takes a coin from these Pharisees. Because, well, why did he ask them for a coin?
He wanted to show them
Show them what?
who it belonged to.
Yeah, they didn't like the Jews, these Pharisees specifically. They didn't They hated the Roman government. They didn't want to be under the Roman government rule. But man, all their money was invested in whose currency? The Roman currency. And they would die before they would get rid of that Roman currency. And that's what Jesus says, give me that coin. Whose face is on that? Now you pay your taxes to that man. Give what belongs to God and give to Caesar what belongs to Caesar. And that's what it says. Render to Caesar the things that are Caesar's and to God the things that are God's. We have commitments, taxes, bills, loans, living, recreation expenses, savings, and investments. If we don't take care of these things, then we're, as Lisa said, worse than an infidel. We have obligations. But again, God comes first. Romans 12, verse 11. Romans 12, verse 11. Not lagging behind in diligence, being fervent in spirit, and serving the Lord. So we live in this world. We're part of a community. We serve a community, whether we're active as in politics or active in volunteerism, whatever, but we're part of this community. And we support this community with our taxes. We like the roads that we drive on. We like the parks that we have. So we have to render unto Caesar what belongs to Caesar. So I end with this because there are some of us that say, I don't like to support an evil and corrupt government. So I'm not going to pay my taxes, or I'm going to cheat on my taxes. So I'm going to withhold my taxes. Let God sort that out. Because Romans teaches us that the authorities that exist here because God has allowed it. We cannot change that fact. But we have to render to Caesar what is Caesar's.
And Jesus, like you pointed out, they gave taxes to a corrupt government.
Well, but Jesus was a little fishy about it, wasn't he? How was he fishy? He took money out of the fish's mouth, right? And that's how he paid his taxes. You're a little slow today, aren't you?
Tried it, didn't work.
Now I know how it feels, Bert. So from the eighth commandment, here's a summary. We learn to be satisfied with what we have. So don't envy, don't be greedy, don't complain, don't blame others because we don't have enough. Ask God, He'll provide, get a job, give thanks for what we do have. Prosperity begins with a thankful heart. Learn to be thankful with the little things. You can't cheat and steal and take a shortcut to have the big things. It's honest and hard work. Believe me, I've tried the shortcut. You know, the late night infomercials, they don't work.
No.
Hard work. Any questions or comments from anyone in Zoom land?
Well, Edward, I want to bring up a comment because a long time ago, when I lived in West Virginia, I went to this music store and I was paying my drum videos out of my cash, and I saw the cashier taking money out of the cash register and putting it in his pocket, and I know his little shindig that he steals and embezzles money. Embezzling, stealing, ain't it, Edward?
Yeah. What'd you do about it, John?
Well, I didn't report it or nothing. I just didn't bother going back when he was there.
Okay. Well, sometimes you gotta keep your mouth shut or you might get your teeth knocked out.
Yeah, he did for real. I ain't blind.
No, I'm sure you're not blind. I believe you.
Yep.
Right. Until we meet again next week, Lord willing, same place, same time. God bless.
Thank you, Ed.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
We got, he said, remind me, we're down in,